Terry, and today I'm going to talk to you about learning styles. The definition of learning styles is basically how a person takes in and assimilates information. Understanding learning styles is very important to a college student because understanding them means that you can study more efficiently, and in the end that equates to higher test scores and better grades overall, and that's a good thing. There are 4 basic learning styles. The first one I'm going to talk about is the visual learner. The visual learner is the individual that takes in information primarily through their eyes. So in order to represent that, I'm going to use this eye icon to help you to remember. The visual learner responds really well to pictures, graphs, charts, diagrams, videos, anything that's going to create a visual representation of the information is going to work great for the visual learner. In order to study better, the visual learner would be responsible for taking their text, whether their notes or their textbook, and creating either an outline, like a visual hierarchy of the information, or using colored highlighters to differentiate between the different topics, and then mentally tagging either the position on the page or the color, anything that's going to allow the brain to take a mental snapshot of the information is going to make it easier for the visual learner to recall the information. Next, we're going to talk about the auditory learner. The auditory learner is somebody who takes in information through their ears, so we're going to use an ear to represent the auditory learner. The auditory learner does really well in a regular classroom because the instructors normally lecture, and that actually works out really well for the auditory learner. The caveat for the auditory learner is that in addition to taking in information through their ears, many times they also need, in order to fully process, they need to speak the information out, to put it on in their own words. And unfortunately in a classroom that's not always possible. So the way the auditory learner would address that is to create a study group. Study groups are a wonderful thing for an auditory learner. It gives them the opportunity to have that discourse, that dialogue, and really cement in the information. An auditory learner also would do well to take their notes and convert it to like an MP3 and listen to it on their iPod, or if there's a book that they need to read, they can listen to it on a CD in their car, and that kind of thing works really well for them. The next learning style is the reader-writer learning style. And the reader-writer is going to be signified by this writing hand on the notepad, because the reader-writer is somebody who not only needs to read information in order to take it in, but many times they also need to write in order to fully process it. And for myself, I'm primarily a visual learner, but I'm also strong in the reader-writer area. And many times if I'm taking notes or studying or that kind of thing, I need to take the notes, write keywords or summaries or something, and I don't even need to refer back to the information in order to study for a test, because it's simply the act of actually writing, physically writing, that cements it in my brain. I don't know why it works, it just does. The reader-writer is the one who's probably going to take the best notes in your class, so if your friend's a reader-writer, make sure to make friends with them and talk to them about it. Kinesthetic learner. Kinesthetic is the final learning style that we're going to talk about today, and the kinesthetic learner is, kinesthetic's just a fancy word for hands-on. So I'm going to use this hand to represent the kinesthetic learner. Unfortunately, the kinesthetic learner has the most difficult time in a traditional classroom, because any time beyond, say, kindergarten, 1st or 2nd grade, instructors don't really use projects or blocks or field trips and all the kinds of things that really work well for a kinesthetic learner. So as a student, what you need to do is find ways to make the lessons, the material that the instructor is presenting, practical to you. Many times if an instructor will incorporate the reasons why they're teaching information, like how you're going to use it in real life, that's valuable to you. So if they don't do that on their own, you can solicit that information from the instructor. Also, if there's an option for you to do a project in lieu of paper or some other kind of assessment, that will work really well for you. Anything that involves actually doing something that's hands-on or has value in the real tangible world. Field trips. If you're learning about something theoretical and there's something that's actually going on that shows that theory put into practice, that will really it'll cement it for you rather than just hearing the theory. Kinesthetic learners have it a little bit difficult, but in some fields it's a lot easier than others. So those are the 4 learning styles. We have the visual, the auditory, the reader-writer, and the kinesthetic. Most people have strengths in different areas, but there's one that's primary for them. Hopefully you were able to recognize yourself in one of my descriptions. And if you haven't tried any of the tips that I've already mentioned, then you might want to try putting one of those in practice. I really think it's going to do you a great service and it will help you out in the future. Thank you very much for your time.